It's the start of a brand new season for the ADAC GT Masters. After the shortest winter break in the history of the series, the cars are regathered here for the traditional start at the Oschersleben Motorsportarena in eastern Germany. Hello everybody, welcome along. This is going to be an amazing series as we race to see who will be the international German GT champion of 2022. The sun is shining. The cars are lined up on the grid and we are so excited to go. Look at that, spectators on the terraces. It's so good to see the terraces packed out once again after two very difficult years. And there we look at our pole sitter, Frank Pereira. He put it all together in qualifying this morning and stuck the Lamborghini on pole. And he is racing for Emil Frey Racing, a team that have come into GT Masters this year in the Lamborghini Huracan alongside Youssef Avega, Monteplas by land, the defending team champions in the ADAC GT Masters. And Youssef Avega really did a sterling job in qualifying this morning to bring it in ahead of that man there, Joel Sturm. He's moved up from ADAC GT4, another team joining us on the grid this year, Allied Racing. We welcome them. Joel Sturm, who is sharing with Sven Muller, putting that car third on the grid. What a great performance it was, as indeed Jonathan Aberdeen. Welcome to GT Masters to Jonathan Aberdeen as well. The South African joining the Man Filter Team Landgraf team in the yellow Mamba, the Mercedes, AMG Mercedes, and he was looking very racy indeed this morning. Alongside me for the majority of the races this year, I'm very pleased to say, will be Adam Weller. And this is your first trip to Oschersleben, isn't it, Adam? How are you finding it?
Yes, first time, thank you, Brian, and very much enjoying it as well. Great facilities here at Oschersleben. Great place to start the season. It's a proper bull ring of a circuit, particularly in these big GT3 cars. And that can often mean, particularly if you end up with a situation where perhaps a driver's struggling to get his tyres embedded, coming back out of the pits or something like that, they can really stack up against each other. And with rumour at a premium anyway, things can often get a little bit intense.
Yes, we walked around this track last night and we were marvelling at quite how narrow it is in places. Overtaking is not easy around this Oschersleben circuit. The best opportunity is at the end of the pit straight heading into turn one, but then directly after that is the very deadly hotel turn, turn two, and we have already seen several cars into the gravel trap this weekend just in practice and in qualifying, and we may well see more of that during this race without wishing to be a complete and total doom-monger. You saw there on screen Jan Marszałkowski, who starts sixth on the grid for Mercedes AMG Team ZVO. Now, we welcome them as a new team to the grid, very much related to the old Zach Speed team, with Philip Zukowski as the team boss, along with Jorg van Ummen, and great to have Jan Marszałkowski, who I saw yesterday and was absolutely beaming. He's loving it. He stepped up from ADAC GT4 this year into that Mercedes AMG GT3 car and is absolutely loving it. Another car that flashed up on our screen was that of Great Britain's Jack Aitken, racing for Emil Frey Racing. Jack Aitken, so good to welcome him here as we see the 3-minute board before this race gets started. Jack, of course, who is the Williams F1 test driver, reserve driver. We saw him do so well in Bahrain in 2020 in the Williams F1 car, and it really is an absolute privilege to have him on the grid, sharing with the real entertainer Albert Costa Balboa. So it is an absolutely action-packed grid. So many stars, so many contenders, 6 former champions. It is really hard to choose who is going to be challenging for this championship, Adam.
Yes, I think we had a bit of a chat about that on the way on the roads yesterday. Started going through favourites, and next thing we knew, I think 2/3 of the grid had come up in some capacity. So there's plenty of quality on the grid. There's the number one car, of course, one half of last year's champions at the wheel of the number one Land Motorsport team, and that is rather interesting, isn't it? Misters Mies and Feller have separated and maybe we'll see who gets the better of it this time around.
I'm told that the divorce was amicable, and
okay.
I think Mees got the cat. But yes, Tim Zimmerman is joining Christopher Mees in the Motorsport by Land Audi, and Ricardo Fella has moved across to another Motorsport by Land Audi and is lining up alongside, well, we're sharing duties with Yusuf Owega, one of the real up-and-coming superstars. We just saw, quickly flashing up on the screen there, Ben Green in the Schubert Motorsport BMW, another British driver, and really excited to have Ben on the grid. Of course, it's the debut for the BMW M4. It's replaced the old M6. The old dog has been pensioned off, and the M4 is here now. They've struggled to get a bit of a handle on that in these early stages, haven't they?
Yes, it's obviously, with any new racing car, you encounter more hurdles than your average 400-meter relay, and there's very much kind of a dialing in process. I've seen the factory themselves working on the car at facilities over the winter, as you'd expect, and yes, they're very much starting from a clean slate. Obviously, you know, Audi are here with a new evolution upon the R8, but they've got 7 years worth of data with the second generation R8 to go on.
Yeah.
Whereas with the M4, it couldn't really be more different from the old M6.
Well, talking to Ben yesterday, he said there is an awful lot to come from that M4. They have just started to scratch the surface in the development of that, and he's expecting great things. Of course, this grid is so tightly packed, very little separating pole position all the way back to, in fact, 17th on the grid was about a second. So if you can find 4/10 is what he was saying, it's going to transform your position on the grid. Right, as you can see, the cars are moving. Conditions are absolutely perfect. Look at that, blue skies. We've had rain, we've had fog, it's been cold, it's been awful here all week long, and just when we needed it to shine, the sun has come out, and it's blue skies. The temperatures are good, 15.9 degrees centigrade here at Oschersleben. Oh, it'd be helpful if I could say it. Motorsportarena. The starting grid about to appear on our screens. In pole position, Frank Pereira for Emil Frey Racing with Yusuf Owega alongside in the Monteplas by Land Motorsport Audi. Row 2 of the grid. Joel Sturm made the move up from GT4 in Allied Racing's Porsche alongside Jonathan Aberdeen in the Manfilter Team Landgraf Mercedes. Mick Wiesover, a veteran in GT Masters, lines up alongside Jan Maszkowski. And then it's Jack Aitken and Klaus Bachler, another driver who knows his way around the GT Masters circuits in the ID Racing with Herberth Motorsport Porsche. Christian Engelhardt line up on row 5 alongside Jesse Krohn for Schubert Motorsport. And then we have Frank Bird, who had a big crash in qualifying this morning alongside Fabian Schiller. Janis Fischer lines up on row 7 alongside Tim Zimmerman, defending championship car, a long way back on the grid. Then Ben Green in that BMW M4 with Luca Engster, the last year's TCR Germany champion, lining up alongside. It's Florian Spengler and Kim Louis Schramm. Louis Schramm was very quick in testing, next on the grid, followed by Thierry Vermeulen and Max Paul on row 10. Then the back of the grid, Simon Riker and Salmon Ovega on row 11. You can see the cars now working to get heat into the tyres. This circuit is 3.667 kilometres around, 14 turns, 7 to the left, 7 to the right. It's been the shortest winter break ever, but it's felt like a long time. The crowds are back on the terraces. They are cheering. We are so excited. The grid is packed. The cars are side by side, and very, very shortly, the safety car will pull off into the pits, and we will get ready to go racing. It is race 1 of a 14 race season for the ADAC GT Masters. On board there with Jonathan Aberdeen, you can see everybody is waiting to go out of the final turn of the circuit. Ahead of them, they will see the red lights. Those red lights are about to go out, and the 2022 GT Masters season is go. The cars along the pit straight side by side. Frank Pereira just getting a nose in front. Sturm's got 2 wheels onto the grass. Look at Joel Sturm. Can he slow it down? No, he can't. He's onto the gravel, and he's made a connection position with another car. He just about keeps it going. So it's Frank Pereira leading the way. Joel Sturm almost stole the headlines, almost trashed the car. That was a daredevil move into turn one. Somehow he survived. All the cars continue on their way. A great shot from the drone as we follow the pack. But it's Frank Pereira who leads the way in the ADAC GT Masters Race 1.
Yes, Krohn lost a few positions there at turn 3. Looked like he was getting the short end of the stick in one of the BMWs. And one of the Emil Frey Lamborghinis off second. That's a 63 car. Aitken with issues then. And that car looks like but it's actually going to recover onto the circuit. I thought he was pulling up at a recovery bay. Thankfully not. But Sturm, to your point there, he did very well just to get the car turned enough to avoid the barriers. He went across the gravel. And once you're on the gravel, there is no steering input that will help you. Yes, Krohn, though, trying to pick up through the order. In fact, no, that's the other BMW. That's a sister car. My apologies. That's the number 10.
That's Ben Green.
Yes, so Ben Green picking up. The BMW's now line astern there in the mid-pack. So Ben Green, maybe he's found that 4/10.
But look at Yusuf Vega in second place. He's not allowing Frank Pereira to get away. Yusuf Vega, who came through from GT4 and has joined the category and is already showing great form. Frank Pereira, a veteran, and not mean that in a rude sense, of the sport. He is not pulling away from that Audi in front of him. Joel Sturm, well, he's probably used about 8 of his 9 lives already in third place. And then Jonathan Aberdeen just a little way back. And it does look as though Aberdeen perhaps is not making as much progress as Marshall Kowski would like. The 2 Mercedes AMG cars behind. And here is Christian Engelhardt, the Team Youth Sportwagen Technique Porsche. And Engelhardt back in P13, looking at Tim Zimmerman in front of him.
Well, side by side and around the outside goes Jesse Krohn there in the 20 Schubert BMW. Good that they've doubled their money. They've got 2 cars this year with the advent of the M4 GT3, and through goes that car in 8th place now. Jesse Krohn hoping to pick his way through the order and show what the M4 can do. Another Porsche is his next target. Klaus Bachler looking back from Engelhardt is the other BMW just behind him. As you said, Ben Green, the fast starter, just to pick up on a couple of other things. I don't think Frank Bird took the start in the 84. Certainly hasn't got around to the end of the first lap. Jack Aitken has continued on, so that wasn't a mechanical issue. Clearly just an error or a collision of some sort on the first lap.
Well, the ADAC GT Masters is commonly recognised as one of the toughest GT3 racing series in the world. Jack Aitken is a wily old dog, but even Jack Aitken can get caught out in a field such as this, and he's got a lot of work to do from the back. We mentioned Frank Bird. He had a very big impact with the barrier in qualifying this morning, brought out the red flags. He had qualified 11th at the time, and he's sharing driving duties with Elias Seppänen, but it looks as though the damage was too much, and poor old Elias Seppänen is not even going to get a drive this afternoon. So hopefully they'll get that car sorted, and they will be on the grid tomorrow. The race is starting to settle down a little bit. If you are new to GT Masters, just to remind you, the race is 1 hour in duration plus 1 lap. Each car is required to visit the pit at one point during the race for a mandatory stop and driver change. The pit window will open at 25 minutes into the race and close again 10 minutes later, 35 minutes into the race. So in that 10-minute window, each driver will be required to come into the pits to make a mandatory stop and driver change. We have lots of other news and interesting information, but we're in the early stages of the race, so we'll keep it on this way. At the moment, it's Frank Pereira and Yusuf Vega leading the way ahead of Joel Sturm, Jonathan Aberdeen, Mick Wiesover and Jan Marszałkowski. You can see the gap there. Pereira is not leaving Vega behind particularly, but both of them and Joel Sturm are pulling away from Jonathan Aberdeen.
Yeah, Aberdeen, I think, is going to be under pressure from Wiesover. In fact, Wiesover was having a little look to the inside as they went through turn 2. There you go, the nose of the Lamborghini just about adjacent to the quarter panel of the Mercedes. It is a very backed corner, turn 3, but I'm not convinced that he's going to get all the way around the outside. He's giving it a good shot. We just caught a glimpse of it there. Has he managed to do it? No. For now, Aberdeen stays ahead. Wiesover did just get past Marszałkowski about 2 laps ago. here at turn 7 on the previous lap. He had a look up the inside of Aberdeen. So certainly that number 14 ML Frey Lamborghini is potentially going to be on the move. It seems as though Wieselfer is in the groove, and he's going to want to get past Aberdeen any which way he can.
The Lamborghinis have looked very dialed in all weekend so far, haven't they? We were looking at them as we look at a replay of the start of the race. We were watching them into turn 1 yesterday, and they were carrying so much speed. And Adam, you just suggested that the mid-engine car really does deal with that corner combination really well. And look again at briefly, Stern had the lead, and if only he could have made it stick, he did very well not to take out Yusufa Vega. It looked like there might have been this slight contact. This was the view from Jonathan Aberdeen, and he could see it all unfolding. And I have to say, 10 out of 10 for entertainment from Stern. Doing a bit of rallycross there. Did he make contact with a Vega? He probably not, actually, but it was blooming close, wasn't it?
Very close, yes. Well, Porsche did build rally cars 40 years ago, so I'll validate it on that front. There's Aitken's moment, and interesting though, those two cars kind of followed each other off, didn't they? I don't think there was any connection, just two people running out of room, and here was Engelhardt getting a view of that. It was very strange that there didn't seem to be any contact or anything, just Aitken ran out of grip, and we did well to avoid any further issue.
I wonder if he ran out of brakes as well, because he just didn't slow down for the corner in the way that he probably expected to. Looking back there at the number 15 car of Luca Engsler, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. He is the TCR Germany champion 2021. He utterly dominated the ADAC TCR Germany last year and has made the move into GT Masters, so we welcome him. As a car dropping down the order, it's Marszałkowski. So Marszałkowski has a problem. Now, what is going on? Is it mechanical? Is it a puncture? Clearly, all is not well in that car.
Corner speed suggests it's not a puncture. I'm wondering if maybe just ran it out wide somewhere. We'll have to see whether we get a view of that, but certainly he's dropped well out of the top 10. He's all the way down to the back of the pack behind Jack Aitken.
That's a real shame. He's really enjoying his debut in the Drago Racing Team ZVO Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo. Try saying that after a drink. He was Mr. Entertainer in the GT4 last year. The car needed a little bit more than Tika after Nürburgring, it has to be said. We were very excited to see him moving up into GT Masters. He is sharing driving duties with Daniel Juncadella, who is the Spanish driver, is a very experienced GT3 pilot and an excellent addition to the GT Masters ranks. Our leader, from Pereira, leading the way from Yusuf Oega, Joel Stern and Jonathan Aberdeen still holding at P4. Aberdeen will be sharing driving duties with Rafaeli Martiello. There is a replay, and that answers our questions. So Marszałkowski, did he make contact with the number 44 car? You just see the back end spinning around, and that is why he dropped to the pack. In fact, the car behind the I wonder if there was a bit of contact from behind. What do you reckon of that, Adam?
No contact from behind. It was very strange. He did make contact with the Porsche just slightly, and it was almost as if in the heat of the moment just applied far too much power, looped it around. There definitely wasn't contact from behind. That will be one that's debriefed afterwards, but the long and short of it is that Marszałkowski is our tail ender now.
That's a real shame, but it'd be good to see what he can do from there, along with Juncadella. Now, Aberdeen coming under pressure from Mick Wieselfer and leaves a big gap on the inside. Wieselfer giving him the squeeze on the exit of the corner, heading down towards Hasserode, under braking, and around they come. And Aberdeen is relegated down into P5.
I think it's fair to say that Wieselfer has been running dress rehearsals for that at turn 2 for a couple of laps. He's been showing a nose on the inside. He's been scouting how to best carry momentum through T2, and on this occasion he made it stick. And I think part of that comes back to what we were talking about with the Lamborghini going so quickly around turn 1. He could afford to scrub some speed, take turn 1 a little tighter, admittedly make a bit of contact on the way through, but in making turn 1 a bit tighter, got the slingshot through turn 2, carried more apex speed and got by only with a couple of flecks of yellow paint adopted.
And Visopa says, have some of that, please. Thank you very much. Visopa, who is sharing driving duties with Konsta Lapalainen, a driver we last saw in Formula 4, I think, here in the ADAC series. So we're looking forward to seeing him behind the wheels. Now, look at that lead, 2.9 seconds. So from Pereira has just little by little stretched his legs. And a lot of this is going to be about tyre preservation. I said that he was a wily old dog, and he's not just blasting the car from the outset and taking loads out of it. He's just very gently opening up that gap, and that's the experience that he has, isn't it? The wisdom. Yusuf Oega now nearly 3 seconds behind.
Yes, I think, there's something to be said for not trying to close up to the back of the pack at the fastest speed possible, because ultimately, as we've discussed, overtaking moves are tricky here. If you're just going to surge up to the car behind you gradually rather than go 100% flat out, burn the tyres away before you hand them over, you're going to be incredibly unpopular with your co-driver.
Indeed, yes. This is very much a team sport, and the second driver who takes the stint has to inherit whatever mess driver number one hands him. Of course, you get revenge tomorrow because they start in the reverse order tomorrow for race 2, but tomorrow is another day. Just to shout out Jesse Krohn in P7. We talked about the BMW M4, how they were finding bits of speed with it and slowly coming on. Krohn's in P7 and Ben Green in P9, so they are showing quite well in that BMW, and it certainly bodes well for the future. At the moment, it's Lamborghini from Audi, from Porsche, from Lamborghini. The highest placed Mercedes MG, Jonathan Aberdeen in P5. Behind him, Klaus Bachler in the number 44 car. And there is the number 91 of Christian Engelhardt, who's down in P8. Engelhardt, who is sharing driving duties this year with Ayanchen Guven. That is a welcome addition to the GT Masters ranks. Ayanchen Guven, who pushed Larry Tenforder all the way to the championship of the Porsche Carrera Cup Germany and just got pipped at the post last year, has moved across to the ADAC GT Masters, and we're quite excited to see how he gets on.
Yes, quite the difference between the Cup spec Porsche and the GT3 car, but I have great confidence in Guven's ability to adapt, and that was my dark horse pick for the championship, really? You may recall, in the car. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah,
I was talking to Ayanchen Guven yesterday, and he said that he's really struggling to adapt to a car with ABS, because of course the Cup car doesn't have ABS, and he said it's a whole new way of driving, but he's getting there. He sees this very much as a step towards his dream of competing at Le Mans, and this is the next step on the ladder for him. But it's interesting, you'd think that ABS you'd instantly be better, but clearly not.
Well, no, because when you have that kind of... Oh, now is that a slowing Lamborghini? Yes, it is. It's not quite up to speed. I think it might have just been a poor corner exit.
I think it was Visopa.
That is Visopa.
Yeah.
And I think that may have just been a poor corner exit. It looked as if maybe it just hesitated for a gear. I'm not sure, but it was only a momentary lapse of pace. The car seems to be back on it now, but Visopa down a position as a result of that. So all of that hard work he did, and all of that argy-bargy between himself and Aberdeen, all for nothing, ultimately.
As you can see, one of our TV crew got a new drone for Christmas and has been using it to great effect. We're getting some wonderful camera shots from the drone, which is following the cars around. Gives you a fresh perspective of this track. And there's a perspective that Mick Visopa was hoping we wouldn't get, and that is staring at the back of Jonathan Aberdeen again. And he's like, oh, deja vu, haven't we been here already? Klaus Bachler has closed in, though, and is nibbling at the heels, as indeed is Jesse Krohn, the Schubert Motorsport BMW, based just a few hundred meters down the road from this circuit, and they are hoping for great things this weekend. They say that this track in the entire GT Masters calendar suits the BMW M4 the least. So they're saying, you think we're good here? Watch this. That's what they were saying yesterday, and we shall watch with interest. Look who's also caught up to the back of that queue. That is Christian Engelhardt, and then just a little way back, it's Ben Green. So Jonathan Aberdeen, I wouldn't say he's a cork in the bottle, that would be rude, but he appears to not quite have the pace of Mick Wiesofer. And here we go again. It's a move on the inside. He finds the gap. Is there going to be a little bit more rubbing once again? He's going to have to go the long way round, but Aberdeen shuts the door, says, no, thank you, you're not coming through. Now Wiesofer, has he got a run on him?
Possibly, no, not quite. Well covered there on the inside by Aberdeen. He's going to try his best to find a way past here at T7. He's tried it a couple of times. No such luck on this occasion, but they really are stacking up behind the big yellow Merc at this stage. Wiesofer there with a wheel on the dirt coming out of T7. They definitely didn't build a Lamborghini rally car at any point, not officially anyway. Jesse Krohn, really good to see him in the pack, as you were saying, as you were alluding to. And of course, at one time it was understood that that car was not going to be here. Number 20 was not going to be here. Number 10 would stand alone because they weren't going to get the second car delivered in time. Not sure whom they talked to or how they got the second car, but they have it, and that's really good because that means that Jesse Krohn, Nicky Katzberg, two amazing drivers who by any right should be contenders this year, will be in for the full season.
Yes, we haven't mentioned Nicky Katzberg yet, have we? The 2020 Nürburgring 24-hour race winner and a mighty fine pilot, sharing with Jesse Krohn. And as you say, Adam, he is going to be an absolute contender, or they are going to be absolute contenders for the championship this year. So many people to choose from. Our defending champions, well, Tim Zimmerman is down in P11, and I'm just looking to see where Yusuf Vega is, and I can't even see him on the screen. Where's he got? Oh, he's still in second place. Now that is right. Talk for 1 minute, it disappeared off our screen. So Yusuf, don't panic. Yusuf Vega in second. Mr. Entertainer of 2022 so far, Joel Stern in third place, but Mick Wiesofer wants the title of Entertainer because he has got his eyes on Jonathan Aberdeen once again, bumping across the curbs. He's been staring at the back of the yellow Mamba, and that's the car that Rafaeli Martiello is going to be taking over in about, well, certainly from about 8 minutes time onwards. And Aberdeen doing everything that he can to make that Mercedes as wide as possible.
Yeah, so it's wide enough anyway, but yes, Aberdeen doing a very good job of adding an extra flair to that wheel arch, as it were. Holding off Wiesofer again, of course. He had his first go at it, and eventually Wiesofer rather bullied him on the way through, and now he's got a second opportunity with whatever happened there to Wiesofer. Clearly it hasn't affected the car's pace because he's on it now once again, and look how he closes up between T1 and T2. He's got nose through again. Almost an instant replay of what we saw a couple of laps ago, but on this occasion he was squeezed out by Aberdeen, and just looking to the inside there, Wiesofer, he thought he might try and go around the outside, didn't get that opportunity, so he said, okay, I'll try the inside. But unfortunately, once again, that Mercedes seems to be everywhere at the moment.
And all of that is allowing the pack behind just to close up a bit. I see Ben Green, he's coming more and more into the picture. He's in P9 at the moment. Look at that, he's jumped up 6 places. That is very good moves of Ben Green in that BMW up to P9. He clearly has sights on positions further up the grid. He is another contender for the championship. He is sharing driving duties with Niklas Kruten, and Niklas will be joining, jumping into that seat in a few minutes' time. And Niklas Kruten, who we last saw racing for the ADAC in the Formula 4 category, riding on board with Maximilian Paul. He's in 16th place, and Max Paul is staring at the back of Florian Spengler, who's in front of him. And that's a great view, a great perspective of Max Paul fighting the wheel. Anybody who thinks they've got an elbow on the window ledge and they're taking it easy on a Saturday afternoon are very much mistaken. Really brutal stuff. And here we go. Oh, we're on the roller coaster drone, following the cars around the circuit.
Yes, it would be good with a VR headset, this, wouldn't it? Yes, it's a great shot that we're getting here, seeing the circuit from above. As looking to the inside of Bakla briefly, there was Jesse Krohn, just got a quarter panel to a quarter panel, but no chance of an overtake there. The number 20 car looms large in the mirrors of Bakla, who had some good results last year. year and is no doubt excited to work with Guven this year. And, well, there was a little bit of touching there, wasn't there? Jesse Krohn saying, no, I'm not going to wait, actually. I think I want this move now.
I was holding my breath then. I thought it was all going to go wrong. I would say that Oschersleben is, well, arguably the hardest circuit of the year for overtaking. And I think Engelhardt is thinking, well, watch this, hold my drink, I'm going to get past Jesse Krohn. So keep an eye on that battle. Of course, you've got a number of cars queued up behind, amongst them Ben Green, who are ready to pounce if those two cars should get together. Arjen Guven is in the pits and just worrying like mad whether he's actually going to get a drive if these two cars get together. As things stand at the moment, Jonathan Aberdeen is still in P4. We ought to mention our leader, Frank Pereira, somewhere up the road, a good 3.5 seconds ahead of Yusuf Vega, who in turn is getting on for 3 seconds ahead of Joel Sturm in third place. So the 1, 2, 3 pretty well spaced out. To remind you, in less than 5 minutes, the pit window is going to open, and all of that could change dramatically.
So I've just caught a message that's been on the screen, I think, for quite a while that explains what we saw earlier on. I think we were so excited by what was going on, we kind of missed the reasoning. Cars 14 and 48 had to change position because of incorrect overtaking. So in other words, the powers that be saw the instances of contact between Aberdeen and Wieshofer and said, no. Got them to change back. And so thankfully no momentary issue for Wieshofer. Apologies for not picking that one up sooner. It's my job to look at these bulletins. But yes, that's the reasoning there.
Well, racing is so good. Why would you want to look at a timing screen when this is going on? The sun is shining. We are at the Oschersleben Motorsport Arena. This is race 1 of a 14-race season for the ADAC GT Masters, racing for the title of German GT champion. This year, running with a new innovative fuel. I'll tell you about that in a minute, because you see a graphic on your screen there that says Wales in race laps for Wales in Africa. And this is an initiative between the ADAC and BWT, the Best Water Technologies. And once again, as with last year, for every completed race lap, BWT and the ADAC will jointly donate €4 to Be Water Mission. The mission is a project of Aquapearls for You and Planet Blue Foundation. With this project, the set goal is to build wells in mainly rural areas of Gambia and Tanzania, ensuring access to clean drinking water. Last year, unbelievably, BWT and ADAC jointly donated 60 grand, 60,000 euros to the Be Water mission. Phenomenal. So that's what that graphic was all about. And while I have your attention, and we're doing the parish notices, to remind you, we have a new fuel this year. Shell Blue Gasoline 98 GT Masters is a new innovative fuel. Consists of approximately 50% renewable components developed by Shell exclusively for the ADAC, and all of the categories across the ADAC are running on that fuel. Back to the race.
Back to the race, and while you were giving out that information, Wieshofer was trying everything he could to get past the big number 48 Mercedes, but he couldn't quite do it, couldn't find a way through. We know that turn 2 incoming is where he likes to try and do it. Now, he has not got even the opportunity on this occasion, although the Mercedes drifts a little wide. It seems to happen each and every lap where Wieshofer is just able to stay tighter on the corner without losing any speed. Meanwhile, Aberdeen just kind of drifts wide a bit. Thankfully this time, though, he didn't quite leave a Lamborghini's whip.
So out of Hasselrode and out towards turn 4. Now this really is a tricky part of the circuit. We saw it when we were walking the track yesterday, and it's not so much corners as kinks in the track, not opportunities for overtaking. Part of the track's got quite a lot of camber. You don't really see that on the telly. We were saying that the cameras tend to flatten out the track, but there's a fair bit of camber on some of these corners. It is a circuit that only has 23 meters of gradient change, but it's this part here where they go downhill and then uphill a bit as we look at Jesse Krohn, who's looking to the outside of Klaus Bachler, and under braking, Bachler just says no and holds on to that. So there's Jesse Krohn, Bachler just in front.
That was very brave from Backler on the brakes up the inside there. Krone had got most of the car ahead before the corner, but Backler was about as late as you can be. I think 2 meters later and he would have been struggling to stay on anything vaguely resembling tarmac. Thankfully, he just about got it stopped, but Krone looking strong.
So we are about 30 seconds away from the pit window opening. Now, this is going to be a big strategy call for many of these teams, and I would suggest that Mick Wiesofer and the Emerald Freight Racing team are likely to pit early, because this will give them the chance to do the undercut on Jonathan Aberdeen. You can see the pit window is open for 10 minutes, and bringing the car in strategically and getting it out onto an open track could be an opportunity to undercut the Jonathan Aberdeen Mercedes. Here is another view from the side camera of the move that we just saw. So pit windows open, every car will be required to visit the pit lane for a mandatory stop and driver change.
Yes, so we'll see who has what's left in the chamber for everyone when it comes to the tyres. We do have new tyres as well as new fuel this year from Pirelli. This new rubber is actually compatible with GT2, 3 and 4 for the first time. And of course that does mean there have been numerous opportunities for some, frankly most of these drivers, to do some running on this already. And Jesse Krone immediately decides to come in. So to finish my point there, this rubber is somewhat of a known commodity, but certainly we're still learning it. It provides faster lap times, sometimes higher degradation as well, so it's going to be imperative here to try and make the tyres last. But look at this, immediately in come I think 4 or 5 cars, maybe even 6, led by Jesse Krone.
Well, I was expecting to see Mick Wiesofer in, because that would have been the opportunity to have got the jump on Jonathan Aberdeen. The car is still out at the moment. Now the cars might be looking a bit slower this year, because the pit lane speed limit has reduced from 60 to 50 kilometers an hour. To remind you that each car needs to be stopped for a set duration of time, 70 seconds stopped in the pits. If they go below that, they are likely to pick up a penalty. There is a minimum pit stop time from pit entry to pit exit, and that is all part of the very carefully monitored rules. There's Kim Louis Schramm handing it over to Dennis Marshall in the Rutronic Racing Audi. Rutronic, the 2019 champions of the ADAC GT Masters. Dennis Marshall, a very useful driver, taking over from Kim Louis Schramm. You can see the clock ticking down on the graphic at the side of the driver's name. What we don't want to see is any of those cars emerging from the pits before the clock strikes 0. So Katzberg is out, and half a second over, so that's fine. Here comes Marshall and Matthias Drudy. And each car slowly coming out of the pits. If one of those little P letters turns red, it means the stewards are going to be taking a look at their pit stop. And we have seen many a race won or lost on those pit stops. Joel Sturm is into the pits. So the number 22 car, that's significant, handing over to Sven Muller. Now, Sven Muller, he is an experienced pilot in the ADAC GT Masters. The German driver taking over from Joel Sturm. Here comes Christian Engelhardt. Ian Chen Guven will be on standby. Guven helping him out of the car. A seat insert. Ian Chen Guven, not the tallest person you've ever met, has a little seat insert to get him up to the same height. This is a very carefully restricted pit stop. A limited number of people allowed over the wall. So you can see Christian Engelhardt using his position to help Guven to get strapped in. The teams are allowed 2 other people to work on the cars whilst they are stationary in the pits, and no more than 2 other people. Of course, tyre changes are not allowed. They need to stay on the same tyres. The engine fires up, and now it's waiting for the thumbs up. The thumbs up. And Guven makes his debut in the ADAC GT Masters at the wheel of the Team Youth Sportwagen Technique Porsche 911 GT3R. And away he goes, having taken over from Christian Engelhardt. And he rejoins on the outside of turns 1 and 2. Quite unusual to have a pit lane exit on the outside of a corner like that. He slots in and continues on his way.
Yes, a bit close for comfort there, wasn't it, as he rejoined the circuit. Here's the leader, though. Frank Pereira continuing on his way. 5 minutes and 45 seconds of the window left to go, so he can do 2, maybe 3 more laps. Yes, actually 3 more laps. And here we get a replay of another of the Emil Frey Lamborghinis, almost having a bit of a coming together with Ian Changuven. 2 corners into his GT Masters race career, and he's already almost been told to go away off the track.
So Consta Lapalainen and Mick Viesover sharing driving duties in that car. Guven, that was the view on board from him. And we look at our leader, Frank Pereira, continuing. He's got an open track in front of him, so I would suggest they might want to bring him in quite late. Not that they're listening to me for advice, I understand. But it'll be Arthur Rougier who takes over from Frank Pereira. And he is poised and standing by, as are all the other drivers, ready to take over. Thumbs up, thank you.
Viesover, of course, was well within his rights as he was actually lapping the car that's already pitted to have the track there. And I'll tell you why he was so keen on doing it. It's because this car had just gone into the pits. So Viesover kind of had the green light. It was finally time for him to be ahead, potentially of the 48. And at the moment, he's lapped the 48 because of the pit lane.
Absolutely. And Rafaeli Martiello at the wheel of that number 48 car. And Martiello is a wily old dog who has been a favourite for several years now for the ADAC GT Masters title. Fair to say he's had his fair share of bad luck as well. He knows how to hustle that yellow Mamba AMG Mercedes around this circuit, and he will be a threat in the championship this year. Of that there is no doubt. So, pit window still open for another 4 minutes. We've still got 3 cars yet to pit, and that is Frank Pereira, Yusufa Vega, and Mick Viesover. They will have to visit the pits within the next 3 3/4 minutes. But as things stand at the moment, they're out on track, making the most of having a bit of space around them. It's always that bit of the race where it gets a little bit confusing, and some have pitted, some haven't. But give it 3.5 minutes or so, and this will all shake out. So far, I hope I haven't put the kiss of death on it. Pleased to see all the P's are not brown, green and grey. No red ones yet. If you get a red P, it means danger. So that's what I read anyway. And yeah, cool. How tight did Albert Costa Balboa make it? He came out on 0. That was very impressive indeed. Albert Costa Balboa, who's taken over Jack Aitken, and that was 1/10 away from going underneath the minimum pit stop time. So very impressive stuff. The 1, 2, 3 remain out on track as Frank Pereira from Yusufa Vega and Mick Viesover. Of the pitted cars, it's Sven Muller from Rafaeli Martiello and Robert Renauer.
Sven Muller will be watching with interest Renauer will be watching with interest as Martiello sits there ahead of him. It looks to me like Martiello's starting to gap them as the leader comes in. Now this is going to be important. Frank Pereira trundling down as you said, that pit lane speed limit is that little bit slower, 10k, 6 mile an hour. Believe me, it makes a difference when you're sitting in a race car.
Yes, absolutely, and that must seem so incredibly slow when you've been going full tilt around the Oschersleben circuit for the last half an hour plus. So to the pit stop line he comes. The clock is clicking, and indeed the clock is ticking. So in he comes, just keeping to that speed limit. Also in is no, we still got Viesover still out. Yusufa Vega takes over the lead of the race temporarily, but don't forget that he too will have to come into the pits.
I thought it was Ovega coming in, but actually it's Viesover coming in. So both of the Emil Frey Lamborghinis are in. I wasn't quite sure if it was a Lamborghini or Audi silhouette in the background, but both of the Emil Frey Lambos that remain unpitted are now coming in. Ovega, meanwhile, he and the team are pushing that right to the limit, aren't they?
Yep, he's just come out of turn 10 at the moment, and he's heading down towards Shell Curve, and he is going to have to come in on this lap, because if he leaves it another lap, he's going to fall outside of the pit window, and that's a definite no. So expect to see a Vega into the pits very shortly. Rougier has taken over the leading car from Frank Pereira. Right, the Vega's into the pits as well. So all cars now either are in the pits or have pitted already. Riding on board with Rafaeli Martiello, the roar of the yellow Mamba. You can see the view of that. Right, so a Vega into the pits. Let's see how it all shakes out.
Okay, well, interestingly, I think that the number 14 Lamborghini is going to come out quite a way ahead of its main adversary from the first half of the race, although I forget just how tight that pit exit really is. It's not going to be the great margin I thought it was, but nonetheless, no change in this battle, really. Throughout the first part of that race, we saw Aberdeen, the world's widest Mercedes, tried his best, but eventually the Lamborghini does come out ahead, albeit not by much.
Right, so there's Yusufa Vega. Now, defending champion Ricardo Feller jumps into the Montplast by Lamb Motorsport Audi. The big question is where will he come out in relation to Arthur Rougier? The number 19 car currently out on turn 11 and around turn 12, so I would suggest that Rougier is going to be well ahead of that car by the time he comes around. He's into turn 13 at the moment. So here comes Feller out of the pits. There's Rougier on the left-hand side of your picture, tearing along the pit straight. Surely Feller is going to be quite a long way back. He's got to wait until he can get up to speed, and that's the three-point turn to get around the corner. Here comes Rougier into turn 1, the hotel turn round to turn 2, and it's Rougier who carries on in the lead in that number 19 car, and Ricardo Feller into second place. Not a bad way to start off your title defence, even if he can keep it there in second.
Very true, but I don't think he's going to settle for second already, asking maybe a little more of the cold tyres than he could really get at turn 3. Just a bit of a wiggle trying to get the car to hook up the apex. Cold tyres are a harsh mistress, and look at this. It hasn't taken long for retaliation, has it? Lapalane and Martiello. Martiello trying to get around the outside and reclaim what was theirs before the pit stops. Side by side. Surely you can't get through this next corner side by side, chaps. Oh, okay, you'll try it. And Martiello all the way around the outside. He's actually done it. Goodness me, I didn't anticipate that. I thought that he'd have to give way, but Rafaeli Martiello doesn't know the meaning of the words.
You've got to get up pretty early in the morning to catch out Rafaeli Martiello. He is a fighter, and of course, Consta Lapalainen, his first race in the ADAC GT Masters. So perhaps it is experience overcoming things a little bit there. Martiello, though, doesn't matter who he's up against, he is prepared to get his elbows out. He is an absolute tiger behind the wheel of the Mamba, to mix my animals up there, and he is leading the way ahead of Lapalainen in P4. So with the pit stops done and dusted, the pit window is closed. We have a little less than 23 minutes plus 1 lap of this race remaining. It's Arthur Rougier who leads the way from Ricardo Feller. We've got Sven Muller in third place ahead of Rafaeli Martiello, and then Consta Lapalainen, Robert Renauer, Chen Guven, and Nicky Katzberg. Dennis Marshall and Niklas Kruten in the BMW in 10th place. We haven't mentioned Patrick Niederhauser or Ezequiel Perez Compact in 12th place, and it's really good to welcome the Mad Panda team, as if this sport wasn't mad enough already, and I'm really hoping that we can see Mad Panda on the podium at some point or the other, because then we might get the giant furry panda that sometimes appears on the podium with the driver. They're joining the ADAC GT Masters this year, with Ezequiel Perez Compact heading things up, and Yanis Fitcher also in the driving seat, but it's Compact who is there at the moment. Another of the many teams joining this series for 2022.
It's interesting just getting flashes about half a lap ago of the battle between Cruton and Niederhauser. Just seeing them come out of turn 10 now at the top of your screen. Here they are. And the junior BMW, if you will, having some serious scraps here with the 15 car. Niederhauser vastly decorated and going up against the youngster. Cruton, I think, isn't quite up to the same pace right now in that M4 GT3 as Ben Green, who was in there previously, but I don't think he's going to let that position go easily.
Yes, of course, Patrick Niederhauser, the 2019 champion in ADAC GT Masters alongside Niklas Cruton, and this is his first ever race. And as mentioned before, the last time we saw him on the ADAC circus, he was in a Formula 4 car, and there you can see just going a little bit wide out of turn 2, the hotel turn, and that place is surrendered, and Niederhauser's through and into the top 10.
Niederhauser was also very bold with his application of power there. The car looked rather loose, as the Americans would say, coming through turn 2, which is slightly banked, but not quite on the level of Daytona. Through into 10th place goes the Audi then, and let's see how this next batch come. And oh my goodness, look, poor Cruton is being introduced to the series with all of the stars at once, because look behind him, 12th place, Marco Mappelli. 13th place, Christopher Mies, our defending champion, lest we forget, and then Jules Gounon, then Marcus Winkelhock and Albert Costa Balboa. In fact, pretty much everyone behind him is considered in the elite of GT racing in the world.
Pressure? What pressure? You mentioned Jules Gounon. He's just taken over from Fabian Schiller in the other of the Drago Racing Team ZVO Mercedes AMGs. Of course, Gounon, who very much stole the headlines in the British GT Championship at Alton Park last weekend, showed what he was made of. Another contender for the championship, and of course he won it in 2017, the ADAC GT Masters title that is, and he would dearly love to do that again alongside Fabian Schiller. We're looking at Niklas Cruton with that queue of cars behind, and the pressure on that young driver is immense. Marco Mappelli, who's taken over from Max Paul in another of the T3 Motorsport Lamborghini Hurricanes, and Marco Mappelli, he was a proper entertainer at Sachsenring last year, going 3 abreast around there, and I think he's got some points to prove this year as well. At the back of that queue there, you can see the car that was being driven by Jan Marszałkowski, now with Daniel Juncadella at the wheel, but that's down in 21st as a result of that spin in the early stages of the race.
Worth mentioning as well, that car in 19th place, Mattia Drudi, in the pits. We got a good look at the Verstappen.com decal on the front of the car. It's running the number 33. I don't think you need to be a detective to figure out the connections there.
Oh, tell me more.
Yes, well, some chap who won a championship last year, Thierry Vermeulen, a good friend of Max Verstappen, the reigning Formula One world champion. They used to kart race together many years ago, and good to see the Verstappen name in the sport in that manner. And well, goodness me, there's a lot going on in that rearview mirror there, isn't there?
Was that Jules Gounon giving Mies the hurry up? He's going, come on, my Merc wants to get past your Audi. It's currently a Lamborghini that leads the way from an Audi, from a Porsche, from a Mercedes. Whoever said the balance of performance isn't perfect, because it's so good to see all these different manufacturers, cars that are turbocharged, cars that are naturally aspirated, mid-engines, front engines, and they're all mixing it together and competitive. And the balance of performance doing a fantastic job in keeping this field level. Having said that, it's Arthur Rougier who is leading the way from Ricardo Feller. I was looking at the gap. Actually, it's not as big as I thought it was. The gap is down to 0.925, so just a little over 9/10 of a second between first and second. So Ricardo Feller looking to get the defence of his title off in the best possible way as he hounds down the Arthur Rougier car that's leading the race.
6/10 quicker on the lap previous, only 1.5 tenths faster Feller versus Rougier on that occasion. We continue to follow this pack back in 11th though, and yes, Cruton has already lost over 3 seconds to Niederhauser, who got past a few laps ago, so he is very much slower seemingly at this stage in the stint. I just wonder whether Ben Green maybe burnt the tyres out for him a little bit. I'm sure that's what Cruton will say.
I'm sure that is indeed, yes. It is such a steep learning curve in the League of Super Sports cars, the toughest. It's a bit of debris in the middle of the chicane there. The toughest GT3 series in the world, arguably. And Arthur Rougier doesn't have the experience that Riccardo Fella does. 21-year-old Rougier enjoying his debut in the GT Masters, and he is going to be feeling the pressure. Now, the question is, will the experience of Riccardo Fella be enough? Well, it's a tough old track to overtake, and we're going to see where that debris came from. It looked like it came off the Christopher Haase car, or did he just pick it up? Hard to say.
It looked to me like the part of the bodywork immediately following the rear wheel, the little kind of almost like fencing they've got behind the rear wheel on that car.
I have to say, we were walking around the track last night, and Adam was identifying bits of debris and not only telling me which car it came off, but which part of the car it came off. Yes, this is why we have him alongside us in the commentary for this year's GT Masters. He knows his cars. We are looking at the lead battle. Arthur Rougier leading the way in the Emil Frey number 19 Lamborghini, defending champion in GT Masters, Riccardo Fella in the number 29 Audi for Motorsport by Land Motorsport, hounding him all the way. And then behind them, person who's just been there or thereabouts, Sven Muller took over from Joel Sturm in the Allied Racing Porsche. To remind you, Allied Racing making their debut in the GT Masters this weekend, and that bit of rubbish, that's debris, should I say, you got to be careful going over that. You could cut tyre, couldn't you?
Oh, 100%, yes. So easily done. Oh, there you go. An immediate post-race snack.
Hey, send it over here, why don't you? We're hungry.
Mid-race snack, actually, I should say. Fella and Rougier, though, so close between the two of them. The gap really did shrink at quite a rate of knots. I think it was somewhere around 2.5 seconds post-pit stop. So Fella is really hounding Rougier, and I think Rougier, as hard as it is to overtake at this circuit, it's going to be quite the feat if he manages to hold off Fella for this long.
Yes, I mean, he's got 14 and a half minutes to hold on to it. Of course, those two have pulled away from third place. Muller left him about 12 seconds down the road. So a long way ahead is that lead battle, 11.8 to be precise. And behind Muller, Rafaeli Martiello and Konsta Lappalainen. You're currently looking at the battle for 11th place. Niklas Cruton with a stream of cars behind him, and we're looking again at the leader going over that debris. Careful, chap, you might cut the tyre doing that, and threw it in the path of Riccardo Fella. But look at the cars now queuing up behind Cruton. He's going to have an awful lot of pressure on his young shoulders, and Marco Mapelli, a very experienced driver, will be looking to muscle his way past. Albert Costa Balboa is there as well, a driver who very much wears his heart on his sleeve, and always a real entertainer, Albert Costa Balboa, and he's a lot further back than he wanted to be for the season opener. And of course, here at Oschersleben, working your way through from the back is especially hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the start of the race, you really need to have an ace first lap. I'll definitely credit Ben Green for that. He made up some serious places on lap 1, but it is hard to come by the opportunities to do so. But as you can see, we may have an opportunity on here for Riccardo Fella. He has a look to the outside at turn 1. Don't think I've ever seen that work. Oh, and Rougier just seemed to catch a bump there on the circuit. Fella has to wait for his moment to get past, but he did so, and well, that was most bizarre. Rougier just caught a bump and it sent the car straight on.
Brilliant stuff from Fella, though. He just bided his time. That's the experience, isn't it? He didn't just jump in the gap. He waited, and then he pounced. And now the reigning champion, the reigning international German GT champion, to give him his full title, Riccardo Fella, is leading this race in the Motorsport by Land Audi. And I would remind you that no driver or team has ever successfully defended the title in the ADAC GT Masters. As we look again at that move, and maybe just a little bit of inexperience around this circuit.
Yes, I think I might change my analysis. I don't know whether he just took too much speed, frankly.
That's what I would say.
There are a lot of bumps there at turn 1, and I think it may have been a little bit of column A and column B, but regardless of the exact cause of it, it's the cause of jubilation down there in the garage for the entire crew behind the number 29.
And, you know, it could be that he was just looking in the mirrors and fella was doing exactly what he needed to do, and that was to hassle him into making a mistake into the hotel turn, and then he waited, and then he grabbed that position. So fella and Montplas by Land leading the way, looking to become the first ever team/driver to successfully defend a title in GT Masters in this, the 16th season of the ADAC GT Masters. And there is Rafaeli Martiello. He will always be there at the sharp end of the grid. And in P4, he took over from Jonathan Aberdeen, and he's running on his own. Robert Renauer is a fair way behind him. In fact, 2 straights almost behind him, 2 of the little bits going in towards turns 3 Hasserode. But there is Martiello, and then we wait what feels like a very long time for Renauer, and Ian Schenguven, he is getting up to speed very quickly in the GT Masters, and he is monstering Renauer.
Yes, I actually want to pick up on the point we were discussing earlier on, where you said that Ian Chen was struggling a little bit getting used to a car with ABS. Yes, ABS in theory makes it easier to actually handle the braking. However, it also kind of expands the limits of what you can do with the brakes. And therefore, actually getting the optimal out of a car with ABS, if you're used to one that doesn't, it can take a little while. And that's kind of what Ian Chen, I imagine, was alluding to there. But yes, the fact that he's already catching Robert Renauer suggests that he's very firmly getting to grips with the whole situation.
Absolutely, and he was so good in Porsche Carrera Cup Germany last year. He came so close to taking the title. He adjusts very quickly, he learns very quickly. We're looking at Konsta Lappalainen in the Lamborghini ahead of Nicky Katzberg. This is the fight for P7, and we're showing as Lappalainen heading a little bit in the wrong direction, but Katzberg is monstering him as well. Ahead of Lappalainen is Ian Schenguven, and we were just talking about. And behind Nicky Katzberg is Dennis Marshall. Now there's a driver who has been lurking for a few years now, and clearly is going to be getting close to a race win before too long.
Katzberg there, coming out of Hasserode at turn 3, really was struggling for traction. Just saw him fighting the car out of the corner. These cars, GT3 cars, we've alluded to the fact they have ABS. They also have traction control, but traction control doesn't negate the effect of tyres that have been driving around Oschersleben for 51 minutes, as Nicky Katzberg, well, I was going to say finds out. He knows it, but he's still having to fight it.
Our leader, Ricardo Feller from Arthur Rougier. Then a gap back to Sven Muller, Rafaeli Martiello, Robert Renauer, Ian Schenguven, Konsta Lappalainen, Nicky Katzberg, Dennis Marshall, and Patrick Niederhauser. That is the top 10. And Feller leading the way as we continue through this race. And that's the view back from Nicky Katzberg, staring at Dennis Marshall. And I think Marshall has got plans on finding a route past Katzberg. A very wily, clever pilot is Nicky Katzberg, as indeed is Dennis Marshall. But as we've said all along, catching a driver is one thing, getting past them is another here, especially at Oschersleben. And overtaking opportunities, well, often the best opportunity is to monster the car in front of making a mistake. Marshall looking and looking a little bit more at Nicky Katzberg. He saw a gap on the inside, but there's no opportunity to make anything stick. He's just trying to fill his mirrors, distract him, force him into a mistake. Ahead of them, Konsta Lappalainen. Now he is going to be feeling intense pressure from these cars behind before too long.
you get this great representation here of Katzberg will occasionally get a little bit closer to the back of Lapalainen. In doing so, he costs himself time and has to deal with the attack from Martial behind. It's this never-ending sequence of, oh, I'll make an attack, oh no, now I have to defend, and it just keeps on going in that manner. Thankfully, with this track being quite narrow, etc., etc., as long as you know how to defend, often you can stave off the advances, but those two Rutronic Audis behind Katzberg, they do look very ominous, don't they?
They do, and of course it's the Evo 2 Audi this year, and I'm told that it creates a wider operating window and doesn't need to be quite so finely tuned. Whether that is the case, well, that's what I've read and been told, but the truth remains to be seen, but it's looking very strong at the moment. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Arthur Rougier in the Emil Frey Racing, well, he is suffering exactly what his predecessor, front pair, had done to the car behind, and that is the leader just gently easing away. Ricardo Feller has opened up the gap to 3.3 seconds over Arthur Rougier, just gently pulling away. We look back from Nicky Katzberg, and to the inside, Dennis Martial, just showing his nose. Of course, it can all go very wrong very quickly here at this circuit. It's a track that bites if you get the wheels in the wrong place and you get out onto the dirt. Down along the back straight towards Shell Curve they come. A little bit of a downhill, a little bit of an uphill. And again, some great shots of Nicky Katzberg concentrating. It is the battle for 8th place. Dennis Martial behind, and just behind him, it's Patrick Niederhauser.
Such a tricky situation that we're seeing a replay of here, because if Katzberg were to simply shut the door, he could well have hooked himself on the front of the Audi and just spun himself. So there's no point being the most aggressive defender on earth, because often it can go against you.
Absolutely, and championships are won or lost in the gravel trap, and just that kind of thing is the kind of thing that takes you out of contention for a championship. We continue very much as you were. We are now approaching the last 5 minutes of racing, and the cars, well, are settling down a bit at the moment, and I would suggest that Consta Lapalainen would be quite pleased to see the checkered flag, as would Nicky Katzberg. Dennis Martial is not done yet. He's got a little under 5 minutes, as has Patrick Niederhauser, both in the Audis. And Niederhauser, who took over from Luca Ensler in the Rutronic Racing Audi. And ahead of him, Dennis Martial, who is also in a Rutronic Racing Audi, and the Rutronic cars were very quick in pre-season testing and really quick all week long, topping the timesheets on Thursday and Friday in various practice sessions, and looking very strong in this race too. Probably not as far up the pack as they would like to be, but still in the top 10. Nicholas Cruton holding on to that 11th place ahead of Marco Mappelli and Christopher Mies.
Great to see the, from the local team no less, the 25 years of Oschersleben on the side of that BMW. It is 25 years this year. I had to double check it because it didn't feel that long ago, even though I wasn't born when it opened. But nonetheless, yeah, 25 years this year. They opened back in 1997, and yes, it's been synonymous with GT racing really from the word go. And one of the first major GT events, one of the first major events in general, sorry, was the FIA GT Championship here many moons ago. Nicky Katzberg under a lot of pressure from Martial, getting that rear view, the looking out of the boot lid, as it were. It's always so almost intimidating just seeing these widely stanced, aerodynamically audacious GT3 cars just hounding the rear view like this. And those slow-mos that we've seen there over 9 and 10 really does accentuate that clonk noise we hear. You see the rear wing flexing and fluctuating as it goes over that bump at turn 9. They take as much curb as they dare, and I'm sure the shock absorbers know all about it by the end of the weekend.
Look at Patrick Niederhauser in P10. He is looking very eager, and he has been monstering Dennis Marshall. Of course, they are teammates, i.e. they're running for the same team. I don't know how it settles in terms of challenging. The one thing you don't want to do is get together with your teammate. How hard does Patrick Niederhauser challenge Dennis Marshall? Marshall really desperate to get past Nicky Katzberg. Time is running out. Good heavens, there's only 2.5 minutes of this race left. Nice tilting angle from the drone, following the cars. Can't even keep up, can it? Go on, flat out, down the straight. Leader, Ricardo Fella, leading the way. Arthur Rougier by 4 seconds, who in turn is 3.5 seconds ahead of Sven Muller. That's the 1, 2, 3. It's Audi from Lamborghini, from Porsche, from Mercedes. And they are very much as you were at the front. This is the battle we have been occupying ourselves with. It's Konsta Lappalainen at the front of that particular pack. Nicky Katzberg trying to find a route past him. Dennis Marshall and Patrick Niederhauser all joining in. Are they going to finish in this order, or is there still more action to come from these 4 cars?
I get the general feeling that we haven't seen the last of this fight yet, to be honest with you. Nicky Katzberg flashing the headlights as they run towards turn 11 there. Just saying, yep, still very much here, guys, and I'm sure Lappalainen's already very aware of the fact. 1 minute and 20 to go as they come around the final corner, but this will not be the last lap because the leader crossed the line well over 90 seconds left when he crossed the line.
And we also have a +1 lap, of course, on this race. A big respect to Konsta Lappalainen in P7. I have to say, I thought that Katzberg would get past him pretty quickly. He's a driver who hasn't got a great deal of experience in GT3, and I have to say he has done a great job holding off Nicky Katzberg, and he will be well chuffed with that in the Emil Frey Racing number 14 Lamborghini, which of course he took over from Mick Wiesover. Now that is a car going wide. Now
Costa
who is
Balboa,
that?
63 car.
Costa Balboa, Albert Costa Balboa. Now that's something you don't see very often, him getting it wrong like that. So that number 63 car has not enjoyed the rub of the green at this race at all, with Jack Aitken doing a little excursion into the local countryside beforehand, and then in Albert Costa Balboa's hands also going off track, a number of battles behind. So Costa Balboa looks to the outside of Marcus Winkelhock. Winkelhock just hogging that racing line, and Costa Balboa, well, it's rallycross, isn't it? And it's going to take him a few corners to get those tyres scrubbed clean.
Yes, well, we saw that actually quite a lot when we were standing at that corner in free practice. It's so easy to just overcook it by a bit. They test the outer perimeter of that corner pretty much every lap, and yes, it doesn't take much more than a K or 2 over what you need at the apex, and you end up off circuit.
So into the final corner, and we have the +1 lap to come, and we are in the absolute closing stages of this race. Ricardo Fella leads the way by a little under 3 seconds from Arthur Rougier and Sven Muller, the 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm not going to put the kiss of death on it and say it's looking pretty solid, because anything can happen. But Martiello in P4, he can almost see a podium, and he really wants to get his championship challenge on track early on. P4 picking up some useful points, but Ricardo Fella leading the way, and here he comes, the number 29 car, the Motorsport by Land Audi. Ricardo Fella, who just gets better and better every year. He crosses the line to start his final lap of the race. And Arthur Rougier, there he goes, and then it's Sven Muller, then it's Rafaeli Martiello. There's the 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they were briefly in shot, but Fella is such a long way ahead. I have to say, I think the number 22 car actually gets my driver of the day, because not only did we see that heroic start from Joel Sturm at the beginning, but then it's been taken over by Sven Muller. Allied Racing's first race in ADAC GT Masters, as indeed it is the case for Emil Frey Racing just ahead of them. So Emil Frey in second place, and of course the very experienced Motorsport by Land leading the way. Look at this queue of cars.
certainly is a big queue of cars. I think I might switch the adjective for Sturm's first corner. I'd go hair-raising over heroic, to be honest with you, but I won't argue over who was driver of the day. Certainly they've been very entertaining for us today. It's a great pack of cars, isn't it, for 11th, effectively back to about 18th place. In fact, it is exactly 11th to 18th place. I stand by my convictions. We're just a couple of corners removed then from the end of the race, and Fella has put in a commanding performance.
So around the final few corners they come, a bit around Shell Curve, around the Mont Curve, around Boa Curve, and now the Zeppelin Curve, the last of the curves. In front of him, he sees the checkered flag. It's Ricardo Fella who wins race 1 of the season for Monteplas by Land. Arthur Rougier in second place, ahead of Sven Muller in P3. Monteplas by Land, though, doing exactly what they need to become the first ever team, and indeed Ricardo Fella, the first ever driver to successfully defend the title of GT Masters champion. Here come the rest of the pack across the line, and it's P7, Constant Lappalainen ahead of Nicky Kasberg. So Lappalainen, kudos to him for holding off the pressure of Nicky Kasberg. Dennis Marshall, Patrick Niederhauser couldn't do anything about that BMW in front of them. That's the top 10. And then Nicolas Cruton, the second of the Schubert Racing BMWs, coming home in P11 ahead of Marco Mappelli. Christopher Mies, Jules Gounon, he's been quite quiet down in P14. Marcus Winkelholt, Norbert Siedler, Matthias Drudy, Christopher Halser, Albert Costa Balboa after that little excursion, and then Ezequiel Perez Companc and Daniel Juncadea in 21st place. And really entertaining start to the ADAC GT Masters season.
Astounds me sometimes when you do that read at the end of the race, just how many incredible names are down in the latter half of the pack.
Yes.
Such a competitive grid in this 2022 season, and they've kicked it off with a very fun race indeed. There was a lot going on there, plenty of dramas, plenty of moments, and there's a new strategy for making sure you reach minimum weight: driving half on the grass on the back straight on the way there.
Pick up rubber, pick up grass, pick up mud, pick up anything you can find. Indeed, yes. Ricardo Fella, the winner, and although he brought it across the line, of course, Youssef Owega did all of the hard work early on. He qualified the car at the front of the grid, on the front row of the grid. Brilliant job there from Youssef Owega, and just 19 years old, and already making his mark in the GT Masters. Here is the official classification. Owega and Fella winning at Frank Pereira and Arthur Rougier. Oh, and there it was, gone. In third place, the 22 car of Joel Storm at Sturm and Sven Muller. Here's the rest of the results scrolling through your screen. A thoroughly entertaining afternoon at the Oschersleben Motorsport Arena. So a bit of wind building up, you can see in the flags there, and again, at the risk of repeating myself, how good is it to see packed terraces with people? We've had 2 years of misery, and it's so good to see people back enjoying the sunshine, enjoying great racing. The ADAC doing a fantastic job with fan interaction, and one of the bits that struck me while walking around today was just so many opportunities for the fans to get close to the cars, to get close to the drivers, to experience different parts, to do sim racing. Wonderful stuff. And then they get to witness a race like this. Ricky Fella taking the car across the line, Youssef Owega co-driving it, and it's the dream start to the championship. Of course, in qualifying, they also picked up points. It was Frank Pereira and Arthur Rougier who picked up the 3 points for pole position. Youssef Owega, Ricardo Fella picked up 2 points, being second on the grid. And Joel Storm and Sven Muller picked up a point for being third in qualifying.
Seeing the immediate post-race, looks like all very happy in the podium. It's not always the case when the top three pull up that they're all delighted with each other, but they're all happy to be back. And
don't know what you mean.
Yeah, well, it happens.
It's Joel Sturm. Look at the smile on his face. You know, he has done a brilliant job. He was a real entertainer in the ADAC GT4 Championship last year. Finished 5th in the championship, and has just been getting better year year on year. He's 20 years old. He's got a lot of racing ahead of him. And team boss Jan Kasperlik has seen the real potential in him and really kind of working hard to promote him. And it's good to see Team Allied in GT Masters as well.
Yeah, that's amazing to see them finally in that in the big spotlight. They've been really quite something in the GT4 ranks with the Caymans, and now they've got the GT3R, and well, clearly starting off very well indeed.
There's a replay of Ricky Feller, as he is now known, crossing the line and receiving the checkered flag, and beautifully waved, if I might say so. And here he is in the pit lane, along with Yusuf Avega. Of course, Yusuf, one of two Avegas racing this year, Salman Avega. In fact, it would be nice if Hamza Avega could have come out as well, but Hamza not racing in GT3 this year. But certainly Salman and Yusuf upholding family honour very well.
And word to the drivers, once you put a nickname on your race suit, it becomes canon. So congratulations, Ricky Feller, for your drive in the second half of that one, along with Yusuf Avega.
Does it count when Klaus Bachler had Klausy Mousy written in chalk on the top of his Porsche last year? And does that count as Klausy Mousy? As not so canon, is it? Right, no. Yes. Congratulations all around. And I really enjoyed that. A great start to the season, this 14 race season for the ADAC GT Masters. Oschersleben, I would say, certainly the toughest track to learn, and in terms of overtaking. We get to do it all again tomorrow as well, which is good. Look at the livery on the bonnet of that car. How lovely is that? Great.
I was going to say, I imagine that's a nod to the Eiffel Mountains, isn't it? And the forests around the Nürburgring.
So some nice slow-mos here of third place, Sven Muller and Joel Sturm in the Allied Racing Porsche. And the number 22 car coming home in P3. In second place, well, they started from pole position. Frank Pereira after Rougier took over for Emil Frey Racing. A great debut in the ADAC GT Masters, driving the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. But it was that man there. We saw him lift the championship last time out at the end of last year, along with Yusuf Avega. It's Ricardo Feller in the number 29 Monteplast by Land Audi R8 LMS Evo 2. So with the familiar theme tunes echoing into the distance, is up to the podium now. It's quite a climb up the stairs to the podium, I have to tell you. Not that I've ever stood on the podium. After a race like that, in a hot day like this, some nice BWT water on standby there. And of course, BWT changing the world sit by sit. Pleased to say that the GT Master, the ADAC paddock, is plastic bottle free. Let's listen in. Well, not a lot to hear. Can we get the mic a bit closer, please? I want to hear what they're saying. There's the Pereira and Arthur Rougier. And Rougier, the young French driver, doing really well. Pereira, who is always there or thereabouts. The very tall Rafaeli Martiello. I thought it was Martiello. It's not. So I saw him earlier. That's Avega, Yusuf Avega. They look very similar, you know. And just comparing notes in the cool down. It's always been a long day. Just bear with me. I'll be with you shortly. There's the rest of the championship. Just scrolling through it. Of course, being the first race of the season, it's Feller and Avega who lead the championship. But of course, we have another race tomorrow. There'll be a qualifying session about 9:15 local time tomorrow morning, and then another race tomorrow afternoon. And anybody who thinks it's going to be the same result because it's the same track is very much mistaken. Almost always it's an entirely different grid and an entirely different result. It's very, very rare to see the same driver or even the same team win twice over a weekend, but Motorsport by Land are out to break records this year. You get that feeling they want to put to bed this whole business of unsuccessfully defending titles and winning back-to-back over a weekend. They want to put this lot to bed and prove everybody wrong.
Well on the way to doing it, at least in race one, but as you said, a long way to go. A lot of pins yet to put in the map before we get to the tail end of the season and the podium gets underway then. Your driver of the day and mine going up there, Joel Sturm along with Sven Muller.
So on to the third step of the podium for Allied Racing. They come second up. Arthur Rougier and Frank Pereira for Emil Frey Racing, and it's so good to see Emil Frey in the GT Masters at last. Been waiting for him to do it for ages. Lawrence Frey Hilty, of course, the team boss, and Walter Frey, the team founder. Top step of the podium, Yusufa Vega and Ricardo Feller for Monteplas by Land Motorsport. And of course, the winning team have a representative on the podium. It's pretty crowded up there with the grid girls as well. So a representative from Monteplas by Land. Onto the podium, and now it's time for the first time this year, the national anthem.
Das war sie, die Hymne, und das sind die Pokale für die Laufsieger. Aus den Händen von Hermann Tomczyk, ADAC
So, national anthem done. Now the trophy presentation. And that's Hermann Tomczyk, who was the sports president of the ADAC, presenting trophies. Good to see Hermann back up there. The second place trophy been presented to the Emil Frey duo. I'd like to tell you who presented the trophies. I'm not entirely sure. I was going to take a guess, but it could all end in tears. And the Allied Racing duo getting their third place trophy. Lovely trophies they are. Joel Sturm, well, I would say star of the future, but a rising star of the present. Very excited to see what he is going to do throughout this season in the GT Masters, as Monteplas by Land also received their trophy. Of course, from here, we move to Austria on the 20th to the 22nd of May at the Red Bull Ring in the Styrian Mountains for round 2. From there to the banked circuit at Zandvoort in the Netherlands for the 24th to the 26th of June. And then round 4 at the Nürburgring at the beginning of August. Round 5 at Lausitzring, not on the oval, sadly, also in August. And then to the undulating Sachsenring for round 6 at the end of September. Then it all comes to a halt. The season closes in October at Hockenheimring.